Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and today we are starting my sci-fi taste test part 2, and this is basically the last week of Ramadan. Well, today's is Sunday the 23rd, and I've been going through my TBR from the start of the month, and I've gotten it down to 4 books. I only need to finish 1 book to finish all 14 prompts for Magical Readathon, and that is Gideon the Ninth, and that one was Close Your Eyes and Shuffle. So I have to read that. As I said, this is a sci-fi taste test, so we're sticking with the sci-fi plus Team Elmo. So Winter's Orbit, Gideon the Ninth, which I already mentioned, First Sister, and Hench. So as I said, so there's 8 days left of the month, so I have to be reading 1 book every 2 days, which isn't impossible. I want to try and get all 4 done though. I'm currently up to 19 books done. So that at the end of my last vlog, I had finished like Fugitive Telemetry. Didn't really talk about that because I've already read those books and loved them. Since then, I've read 2 more books. So The Heart Forger by Hench, I gave that 3 stars, but it was a fantasy, and I was like, don't really have any vlog ideas for it, so, you know, it's a sequel, it's a fantasy, so I was like, I'll just read it on my own time. And the other one I read was Strong Female Character by Fern Brady, and this is a non-fiction. Anyway, so that's also Team Ilma's subgenre, so I read that. I really enjoyed it. It's a non-fiction, and I did actually have to read a non-fiction for the Magical Readathon, and Fern Brady is a comedian and she's autistic, and that's basically what the book is about. And like, it's funny, but it's also like, there's some really like, you know, hard-hitting moments in there, and I really enjoyed it. Hi, so I'm giving you I think I'm about a third of the way into Winter's Orbit, so we're gonna just do a bit of an update. Also, I needed to read about half of the book yesterday to keep on track, but it's okay, I'll catch up. So Winter's Orbit, so it follows 2 points of views, and yeah, I feel like this is gonna be hard to describe. So one of them is the like one of the princes of this like imperial house, and they like their planet kind of is in charge of a load of other planets. And then our other point of view is from one of these smaller planets that is controlled by the bigger one, and he was married to another imperial prince, and then recently he has died, and because there's a treaty coming up, the 2 of them are forced into a marriage. I feel like it's like this other like entity that I still don't understand the full details of, that is like decides whether or not the treaties can like go through. But I think Thea or something is the name of the planet that that like the smaller planet, they're not exactly happy being under the control of this, you know, empire. It's kind of up to the 2 of them to, I imagine, like get some sort of treaty. And I think like right now the treaty, like their terms are like really unfavorable to the people of Thea, and so I imagine like throughout the book, you know, they'll try and get like better terms or whatever for them, and then, you know, fall in love along the way. I'm imagining that's where it's going, and let me tell you, I'm having such a good time. You know, we're trying to figure out what I like in sci-fi. Seem to prefer sci-fis that aren't set on Earth, which this is not set on Earth, and it's not like super heavy sci-fi. It's not like super like science heavy sci-fi. The sci-fi is kind of like in the world building, like it's just like there is technology, and like in a way it is very almost fantasy-esque, like instead of it being like a country that is ruling all of these other smaller countries, it's a planet that are ruling these other smaller planets. So there is sci-fi, and there's like, you know, talk of like terraforming and all of this stuff, and like obviously there's technology and all of that, so like there is sci-fi. It is a sci-fi book, but it is, I feel like it definitely reminds me of fantasy, because like it's not like completely like just ranting off science to you. It is also extremely political, which we all know I love a good political fantasy, so also really enjoying that, and I'm really loving the romance, which like at the point I'm at hasn't really come into play so far, but I can already see it, and it's gonna be good. I was also saying that I seem to kind of like shorter ones, which this is not a shorter one, this is a longer one. I was also saying that I like a bit of action, which this doesn't have any action so far, but the characters aren't just like letting things happen to them. They are like actively partaking in the story and trying to like figure things out, which I'm enjoying. I do enjoy the characters so far, and I think they have like a really fun dynamic, and both of their points of views, it's really fun to read from, because like they're both like trying to, you know, do the best for the other person, because like they want to make life easy because like this is an arranged marriage. And so like they're both trying to do their best, and the other person is just like kind of like either taking it the wrong way or like doesn't seem to like have the response that they want. And yeah, I am a little nervous because like right now I'm feeling 4, maybe 5-star vibes, but I am worried that it's going to be like a bit too long. It's kind of miscommunication, or it's more like no communication, which like I understand there's no communication because these people only met like a week ago and there's obviously very little trust or knowing each other. So like I understand why, you know, there's like very little communication, but I'm worried that it's going to get repetitive and it's going to start bugging me. Also, one of our characters, like, he's going through a lot, and like I'm intrigued to learn more of the like backstory because I do not think that the planet has been treating him very well, and I'm excited to see the other guy's reaction to it. He's already like pretty like defensive about him, and I'm like, so this is like a political sci-fi romance. So yeah, it's great fun. Hi, so I was supposed to update you yesterday and then I didn't. Actually, I was supposed to update you like 2 days ago and then I didn't. But I have updates to share, obviously. So I finished Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell on Monday. Yes. And I gave that a 4 stars. A very high 4 stars. Like, I was like debating between a 4 and a 5. And then I have also started Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. And I think I'm like 57-ish% of the way through. So we're making good progress. Winter's Orbit, as I told you, it's all about a political marriage. And I really did enjoy it. I'm trying to like remember what I told you the first time I was talking about it. And I think I mostly talked about how I was really enjoying the political aspects of it so far. And it was only about a third of the way through when I was last talking to you, and so we weren't really into like main part of the story. We had been kind of introduced to what it was going to be about, but we weren't really making that much progress in it. But I had been really enjoying the character interactions and kind of like the awkwardness there, as well as like learning about how these planets work and all of that. And that continued for the rest of the book. I think kind of the main thing that actually brought it down from that 5 to a 4 was there was just like a little bit in the middle that was like a little bit repetitive, because it almost nearly follows a bit of a mystery plot in there as well. Not like a huge amount, but like the two of them are kind of like starting their own investigation into what happened to his like husband that has just died, and like there's like things that aren't adding up, and so the two of them kind of start like a little bit of an investigation into it. And for like just like a little bit from the like 1/3 to like about the halfway mark, it just kind of like got a bit boring for me, because they were just like going places, talking to this person, thinking that they got somewhere, turned out to be like a false lead. Then they went somewhere else, were talking to people, and so like it just got like a little repetitive. One of the main reasons, and then the other reason I would say is just like I think I did enjoy the romance in there, but I think I just wanted like a little bit more. I'm trying to think how to like talk about it without like being spoilery and everything. We're reading from both of their perspectives, and like in their heads we see that they like they want to like obviously make life easier for the other person, but I feel like we don't really see their feelings that much like about each other. They are like starting to get feelings, and then next thing they're like it takes a while to get to the point that they're like actually, you know, confessing feelings or whatever to each other. Like it's like over halfway into the book, I would say, if not further. And but I feel like we hadn't had enough of seeing that in their heads. Like I saw that like they cared from the start. He was like, I don't want to get married, but I'm going to make life as easy as possible. And he continues to try and do that. But it's in no way does it kind of tell us I'm doing that because I care about him and not because I'm just like a decent person. You could tell that they like liked each other, but I just wanted like just a bit more in their heads about, oh, I think I like this person. Overall, I still like obviously really enjoyed it. It's like a really high 4 star. Those were my 2 biggest complaints, but they still didn't take away from my overall enjoyment of it. I really love the characters. I really felt for them, and I did think that like you did like fully understand them, and like you really felt for the situations that they were in, and you like, and I did enjoy the romance between them, especially like after that like 50% mark. Like yes, as I said, it did annoy me that like I didn't see it in their heads until after that point, but after that point like I loved seeing, you know, the way that they were thinking about each other and all of this, and it was just really sweet. And there was also just like, there was like a bit of angst in there as well, which we all know I love. They were well developed, they had their own personalities, and I think it was interesting to read from their two perspectives because they've had such different life experiences, I suppose, and are like, with like all of the politics that are going around, like, despite the fact he is like a imperial prince, Cam is like, he's pretty naive to everything that is going on. He just kind of like assumes that everything is like good like until like the book happens, and even then, like, I'm not sure, is it naive or does he just want to believe the best in people? So like when things are happening, he's just like, oh, it's obviously just a mistake that this thing happened and that they're like not letting you in this place. They're not being malicious about it, definitely not. And like, it was very different to read from his perspective. And then our other character, who like, he just like knows that like this place is terrible. And so it was really interesting to read from those two contrasting, and how like they kind of like balanced each other out, and like they both kind of pushed each other to be better, and like that was all really sweet. And then the other thing that I loved was the world building. I love political fantasy, and so it doesn't really surprise me that I would love a political sci-fi. And I loved the messiness of it all. I hated it. There were so many aspects to it, and it did like definitely give me those like fantasy world building vibes. I didn't see all of it coming. I saw some of it coming, I didn't see all of it, but I enjoyed it. And then the last thing is the writing. I did actually really enjoy the writing, and also look up the trigger warnings for this because you should do that. I'm not someone who needs any, but like the writing style in this book, it's nearly like unsettling, because you know that something is not right in, what's his name? It begins with J. In Jay's perspective, you know something's not right, and you like feel his anxiety in the writing. And then like when you switch to Kim's, like, it's like so different, but it kind of like adds to that like unsettling, like something is not right here feeling. And yeah, as I said, it just like, it kind of gave you like a bit of a pit in your stomach while you were reading it. I know some people will not like that, will not want that, but like for me, I was like, that's very impressive, because I'm not someone who usually is like nervous or anything while reading a book. Okay, the postman came, so I can't remember what I was in the middle of saying. I'm currently reading Gideon the Ninth, which I would also say is I would say it's more fantasy than sci-fi, to be honest, but a lot of people classify it as sci-fi. I am currently about 57% of the way through, and I'm really enjoying it. I don't love it as much as a lot of people do, but I do really enjoy it. I think it's just the humor. Like, I like it at some points, but then other times it feels really juvenile. Also, I don't think I've actually like laughed out loud at it. So like, I'm like, I can acknowledge that like it's like funny, but like it's not like make me laugh out loud kind of funny. So yeah, so this book, I mean, everyone describes it as lesbian necromancers in space, and I would just like to say, like, yes, technically true, but the lesbian does not have a big focus so far anyway in the first 57%. Like, that's just like a background fact. And then necromancers, okay, that is a big deal. And in space, honestly, not really that talked about either. Like, it's just like, yeah, we are in space, but are we going to talk about the fact that we're in space? No. And also, I feel a lot of people say about how confusing this book is, and I don't get it. I'm so confused. I'm confused as to the fact that people are confused. I'm like, unless I'm like that bad that I like don't even realize that I'm confused. But I feel like I understand what is going on. And like, is things gonna start getting weird in the next like 40%? I don't know. But we follow Gideon, and basically when they were a baby, their mother like died and kind of nearly like fell onto this planet, and Gideon basically gets taken in and is basically forced to be a part and worship and all of this, everything else that the Ninth does. At the start of the book, she is once again planning an escape, and she is really close to escaping, but then her like arch rival, Harrowhawk, stops her and ends up kind of foiling the plan, being told about the fact that there is this like almost trials like thing coming up that Harrow has to participate in, and Gideon is essentially forced to come along to act as almost a bodyguard to her, because Harrow is like this really powerful necromancer and Gideon is not a necromancer, but Gideon is good with a sword. So the two of them head off to this place, as I said, in space, but not very important to the story. And they have to try and work through these trials to get this like powerful position in the Empire. I don't really see like the love for it. Like, I like it, but I don't love it. And it's definitely like a series that I'm going to continue, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be a 4-star for me. But it's just like, I don't see like why so many people love it. It's a bit unique, but like I feel like a lot of it, like, it's not necessarily unique as in like everything is like never seen before. It's more that like she's kind of gotten a load of things that have been seen before and put them together that usually don't go together, kind of like, you know, like the necromancy but in space, and the humor, and like all of this. So like it's like, so yeah, so it's like a combination all of a lot of things that maybe like you wouldn't usually expect to see together. And I suppose maybe that's why people like really love it. It's just like, and I suppose also if like the humor works for you, that also could be it. But like it's fine. It's but yeah, it's good. It's just like, it's definitely like not gonna be a new favorite series, I don't think. But like, I'm having fun. I finished Gideon the Ninth last night, and it's still a 4-star, which I predicted, but it went from like a lower 4-star to a high 4-star by the end, because by the end, like, I'm very intrigued about what will happen in the next book, because I'm like, huh, that doesn't usually happen. So I'm very intrigued. I'm very interested. And I've heard that the second book, from what I've seen, because I like added it to my like want to read on Goodreads and everything, people seem to be more confused by the second book than the first book. So maybe I was just mixing that up, because I heard a lot of people say Gideon the Ninth was confusing, but I don't think it is. Especially if you've read a lot of like epic fantasy, then you're going to be fine. As far as I know, I think the second book has second person point of view in it, which I think is where like it gets confusing for people, which I have read a book in second person. I've read the 5th season and I enjoyed that book. So like, I'm hopeful. Also, I realized that my vlogs this month are really boring, because I literally like basically have never left the house. I think I left it like a handful of times to just like go to the shop, and that I've just been like studying at home, reading at home. So whoops. I feel like it's very fantasy. Like, yes, there is sci-fi elements to it, but it's very fantasy. I feel like it's not fair for me to like include it in like the sci-fi taste testing, because like I'm trying to figure out what I like in sci-fi. So if me saying, oh, I like when it's fantasy, like, I mentioned, I liked the characters. I didn't love them as much as I feel like some people do. So like the whole like enemies like would die for each other thing can be very hit or miss with me, because sometimes I feel like it's just like bullying, which I feel like was kind of the case in this one. And so like I found it very hard to try and feel anything towards Harrow, because I was like, I could towards the end of the book, but it took like a really long time to get there. Then I was like, okay, I, you know, sympathize with you, but like I still just like, I was like, that doesn't excuse everything that you have done to Gideon. I found it hard to like root for like them as a team, kind of, because, but like the next book is Harrow the Ninth, so like maybe being in her perspective might, maybe getting more from her might change my mind on it. They went from like absolutely despising each other, like fighting all the time, like saying horrible things to each other, to being like, you're my bestie and I would die for you. And it's just like, okay. Some points her humor felt very juvenile to me, but I feel like the seriousness of the story did break it up well, because like we'd get dialogue from her and it would be like a bit absurd. And sometimes it made me, sometimes I thought it was funny, sometimes it didn't, you know, it was a bit hit or miss with me. I would say more hits than misses, but there was a couple of misses. But then, like, you know, all of these, like, there were some, like, pretty, like, graphic deaths in here. So, like, all of these things would be happening. So, it'll, like, really bring the tone of the book down, and I enjoyed that. I did enjoy Gideon, and I did like some of the other characters as well. But a lot of them, like, I could not tell them apart. That also might have been the audiobook, because, like, they had, like, some, like, fancy schmancy names, and I was like, oh, which person is this? But, like, the important ones, I knew who they were. So that was, like, all that mattered. And I did enjoy the world building. At first, I was like, I don't really get, like, why everyone says it's, like, so unique and all of this. And, like, as I said, if you read, like, a lot of, like, really epic fantasies, especially ones that, like, love confusing stuff, like, this is not going to be confusing to you at all. And so I liked the world building. I liked the magic system. And I hope that we get more of it in the second book, because Gideon kind of, like, just doesn't care. Like, she is like, eye roll, I don't want to listen to you rant about this specific theorem about necromancy. And so she just kind of tunes it out. So, like, we don't really get that much of the magic system, which kind of adds to her charm, that, like, she just doesn't care what's happening. We're getting more of Harrow in the second book. Then hopefully we'll get, like, more development of the magic system, which I would enjoy. Towards the end, I was like, there was, like, some, like, pretty graphic deaths, and there was, like, it got, like, really fast paced, and there was, like, a lot of action, and there was one thing that, like, I saw coming from a mile away. It's like, yeah, that's definitely what's happening here. But there was, like, a small part of that I didn't see coming. And then, as I said, I didn't see the end coming, and I was like, So I'm very intrigued how that will play out in the second book. I think that's all for now. I'll probably update you tomorrow. Well, I have finished filming, like, 2 videos today, and I said, while I'm set up and looking like this, I might as well talk to you about First Sister, because I read the whole thing and I haven't updated you once. And I don't really know how I mean, I gave it 4 stars, so I liked it, but I'm kind of annoyed by the end of it. I don't know how I feel about it. Like, at first I liked it, and then I didn't like it, and then I liked it again, and now I'm kind of, like, back onto, I don't really like that. So it's very confusing. Also, I accidentally read the synopsis of the 3rd book, and so I don't want to continue because I know my favorite character is going to die. So, like, I do really recommend this, but, because, like, it was really good, and, like, it's really underrated. It has very few ratings on Goodreads, actually. So, like, and, like, also it's LGBTQ+, and, like, really strong characters, you know. We follow, like, so many, like, different walks of life. There's, like, a non-binary character, and there's a character who, like, grew up poor and, like, worked their way to the top, and we follow a captain with a disability, and we follow a woman who can't talk and is basically part of the sisterhood who, like, basically they're supposed to be on the ships, and they basically they pleasure the men if the men want that. And so, like, it's very interesting characters from all different kind of walks of lives, very different backstories, and where they all are. Like, it was so strong at the start. I was really, really loving it. And as I said, so I did love the characters. There was a romance, and it was an LGBTQ romance, and I was like, yay. But it went way too quick, because we barely got any interaction with them, and then next thing it was like, I love you. And I'm like, where the hell did that come out of? Because you barely know each other. Like, the chemistry was there, and, like, the care was there, but it just wasn't developed enough. So, like, I was like, if you could just have had, like, just a couple of more scenes between the two of them, then I would have, like, really believed it. But I was like, I believe that they care about each other and like each other, but I don't think that they love each other. And there was also some really interesting, like, friendships. Like, it's one of those, like, plots that I really love, where we have 2 sides of a war where both are wrong and both are doing terrible things, and, like, our main characters are kind of in the middle. Like, they all want peace, and, like, they kind of have to, like, you know, open their eyes to this things that their sides are doing and come together and all of this, and like I love those kinds of plots, and so like it was really working for me. I loved the politics of like the world, the universe, I don't know, and like the backstory of how like everyone came from Earth and all of this. I was really enjoying it. And then I didn't really love the end. Basically there was like two kind of twists I would say at the end, and one of them I definitely don't like, but it's not really that big a deal. I don't like that, but like I don't think it will necessarily like impact the story going forward, whereas the other one, that's going to actually impact the story going forward, and I didn't really like it. I don't know how I feel about it, because I liked it and then I didn't, and then I liked it again, and then because like it's very complex, and like how that kind of sets up the world is also really complex, and how that sets up the next book, and I don't know. And like that's also made me kind of unsure of how I want to continue, because like the way it ends, like we got all of the characters' point of views that we were like reading from, we got them together, and then like at the end of the book they're separating because of like how the book ended, that all of the characters are going to be separated again, and that just like spells out middle book syndrome for me, because that happens so often in the second book where everyone is separated, and then like by the end of like the second book or start of the third book they're finally back together again, and now it's time to take down the bad guy. And like a huge part of one character's storyline is he is hunting down this other person, and so like I was like, we were waiting the whole books for them to get reunited, and they did. They got reunited for a couple pages, and then they're going their separate ways. I want more of that like bond that the two of them shared. So like I don't know. I will probably continue, but I'm probably gonna like wait a couple of months and then I'll continue. We're getting near the end of the month, and I do have one more book that I want to try and read, and that is Hench by, I can't even remember who. I swear I'm like such a mess today. Okay, so this is going to be a really short update. So I am actually reading Hench, and I'm not sure I'm going to like this book, because basically it is kind of a villain origin story. But basically like she's a henchwoman, and she just gets like hired for temp agencies. She gets injured and she decides to basically like use maths to try and kind of calculate how much life is lost because of superheroes. And that sounds like a really interesting premise, because like, you know, because she's calculating, okay, yeah, sure, we're like the bad guys, but how is like 50 years of our life worth the same amount as like a ransom? And like that sounds like an interesting premise, but I think where it's going is like obviously villainous. And so she's trying to basically get under heroes' skins to try and make them act out more. But by doing that, she's getting them to act more erratically, and more bystanders are getting hurt. And that just goes against everything that she's trying to say. So I hope that as the book goes on, that gets addressed, and like she maybe like realizes that and is trying to come up with a way to like be neutral and like, you know, say the villains are bad and the heroes are bad and all of this. Because like at the point that I'm at, which I'm only like about a third of the way through, I'm like, but by doing this plan that you have, you are trying to get them to act, these heroes, to act more unhinged, which will lead to more injuries, which is the whole thing that you're trying to call out. And I'm like, oh, so it's a necessary evil when it's your goals that they're working towards? And yeah, so I have a feeling, like I'm hoping that it's going to be addressed, because otherwise I'm going to be annoyed. Okay, just another quick update, because I have reached the 50% mark, which is when I usually like to do my updates. So I never really give you a proper synopsis, I feel. Like, no, I think the one I gave was okay. I can't even remember our main character's name, and I'm literally currently reading the book. So she works as a henchwoman because, you know, it's hard to get jobs and all of this, and she is on a temporary contract, and she ends up getting hurt by one of these heroes, and then her leg is permanently injured, and while she is recovering, she kind of starts to obsess over these superheroes and the damage that they're doing. And so she starts to kind of make a little project of like calculating all of the years of lives lost from these heroes, and kind of comparing them versus the good they're doing. So okay, they saved this child, but in the process, you know, 53 years of life was lost. It's just her trying to expose the heroes for what they are. And that in itself, it sounds interesting. I find the concept of like her using maths to do this, like expose everything, really like I thought that it was a really unique concept, and I also really was excited for like the nuanced conversations that this would involve, because at the start that's what I thought we were going to be getting, because it was, she was calculating it and she was like, okay, my life and this other person, so this other person died, and she's like, okay, so we're in a risky line of business, so let's cut our life expectancy down to 50. That's still 25 years lost. And then, okay, this guy had a permanent injury, this cuts his life expectancy, so that's however many years lost. And that's what she's doing. And when she first started doing that, and like all of it saves like this amount of money and this one kid's finger, and versus, you know, however many years of other people's lives. And I was like, this is going to be really fascinating, and I don't like it. And this book just isn't working for me, because I thought it was going to be a nuanced conversation, but it is not. It is actually very surface level. It is just putting, okay, this many years of life is not equal to this, is worth more than this thing and that thing. All she's really talked about is like permanent injury and death. That's all she's taken into account. But she's not taking into account like the person that the villain, okay, yeah, they only want to hurt a child, they're not trying to kill them. But she's not taking into account, she's not taking any years off the child's life, because they're not being permanently harmed. But you have no idea how that would affect their mental health or the quality of life they would have after being traumatized. The only thing that is being discussed is years of life, not quality or anything like that. And it's just so surface level that it's really frustrating me. Also, she's not taking into account her impact that she is having, because people that she is commanding are getting hurt because of her plans, but she is still blaming that on the superheroes, and she's not taking any of that blame for herself. She could, despite the fact she is the one who is antagonizing them. And yeah, the superheroes are wrong, but she is also wrong, and she doesn't see this. And I am 50% in, and I'm really hoping by the end of the book she has this realization. And if she doesn't, I'm going to be mad. Because like, it has the potential to be really good. And from what has just happened at about the 50% mark, I have a feeling that the author is just going to go superhero bad for the rest of the book. I don't think she's going to add any other kind of discussion in, which is a bit disappointing. I think I might DNF this book. I don't DNF books, but I really don't want to listen to this anymore. I'm just fed up of it. It's just a lack of self-awareness that bothers me so much. Because like, obviously the whole point is it's a villain origin story. So like, I obviously don't expect her to be a good person, but yet I at least expect her to be self-aware, but she's not. And it's so frustrating, because it's just, as I said, the only thing that seems to matter to her is actual, like, whether someone is dead or alive, not anything else. Like, she encouraged someone, a hero, which like the whole point is like the heroes suck. But she encouraged a hero to stalk a woman. But because she's still alive at the end of it, so it's okay. And oh, I'm going to kill this person because it's gonna upset him. And that's fine, because this guy dying prevents more people dying. And she just doesn't talk about any sort of nuance about the lives that it's just so surface level. And like, obviously, as I said, like, I didn't expect her to be like a good person. Like, the whole point is a villain origin story, but I thought the whole point would be her trying just to expose this and trying to make it stop. But no, she's making it worse. And she's like, see, this is his fault. Everything that she's doing, she's like, see, this is his fault. No, like, yes, it is, but it is also equally your fault. You're arranging this. looking on Goodreads to see if it's like just a me problem or have other people had the same problem. And it seems I'm mostly in the minority, but I did find a Goodreads review that made me laugh because this is exactly what I feel. This person, they said it read like a long, meandering revenge fantasy, which technically, yes, that is what it is. It felt really mean-spirited and completely unself-aware. Is that a word? I feel like it was supposed to be a really feminist and an allegorical smash the patriarchy type of story, but the women were all trash to each other, which to me is not feminism. I guess my biggest question is whether Anna, that's the main character's name, is whether Anna's lack of self-awareness was intentional or just lazy writing. If it is intentional, then maybe this book is a work of genius. However, I am not sure a book can be a work of genius when it contains the phrase "rip in peace." Also, seriously, so annoyed that no one else ever laughed. They were always almost choking on their coffee. Counted 3 times in about 3 pages in the first chapter. Hi. So, I just realized, I was like, I'm done. And then I realized I never told you I was done. And then I'm supposed to like sci-fi taste test it and all of that. So I finished. I gave it 2 stars. I really thought I was gonna have like a really good reading month because like it's been mostly 3 and 4 stars, and like I think I had 2 5 stars. So like good reading month. I read like 22 books. I had gotten 1 2-star, which was Sleeping Giants. No 1 stars, 1 2-star, and like the rest were 3 4s and then 2 5s. I was like, that's a good month. And then I finished the month on a 2-star. I don't know why I kept going because I knew I wasn't gonna like it, but I just wanted to. There was no point starting anything else, so I might as well. But I'm not gonna continue the rant that I have been saying because it's the exact same feelings that I had all along. But I will put my Goodreads review. Actually, like wrote a review, like an actual review. Me, more shocking than you might think. That's how mad I was. That's how mad. I still don't think I've done enough to figure out my taste in sci-fi because I mean I did like read like what 10 maybe sci-fi books, so like of course I still don't know my exact taste in sci-fi. I mean, listen, how much fantasy have I read over the years and I still don't know my exact taste in fantasy. I'm still constantly surprised by myself, either through liking books more than I thought I would or disliking books that I thought I would love. So I do feel like a lot of my sci-fi tastes align with my fantasy tastes. Like I really like the ones that were high world building. Like I didn't really like the ones that were set on Earth, which I also don't really like urban fantasy settings. So I like the ones that had their own world building because they had their own, yes, it might have been their own planet instead of their own fantasy world, but you know, it was still their own world and they had to build that up. So those are still the ones that I preferred the most. I liked ones that had characters who were actively participating. I didn't like books about observation or anything like this. Also, I did say originally that maybe sci-fi or novellas, but I've read a lot of books in this vlog that were very long that I really enjoyed. So we can cross that off. Just like with everything, some hit, some don't. Lovable characters is always going to be a thing that I look for, just like strong world building is always going to be something that I look for. The main thing that I've learned in this is that I don't think I like set on Earth. Like, obviously, I'm sure that there's going to be exceptions to that. Like, out of all of the sci-fis I've read, I think an absolutely remarkable thing is set on Earth, and that is a 4-star that I gave, I think. I think I gave it a 4 stars. But also, that is nearly more of a contemporary and is talking about, like, fame getting to someone's head, basically, is the whole point of that. So it's very much like, so it feels very contemporary. It's a lot about pop culture and all of that. So, like, I feel like it's not 100% fair to be, like, sci-fi, because, like, it is definitely a sci-fi and it has, like, a lot of puzzles and all of that. But, like, that's not really the focus of the story. It's something. I like political sci-fis with lovable characters and intricate world building. That is not surprising, considering I love political fantasies with lovable characters and intricate world building. So yes, so thank you guys so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!